Good morning. I'm here to discuss House Bill 757, a bill that has generated many feelings, many of them very intense. Perhaps it has also highlighted the concern of many in the religious community about the decision of the United States Supreme Court last summer, which legalized same-sex marriage. House Bill 757 attempts to enumerate actions that religious leaders and faith-based organizations and people of faith shall not be required to take or perform. These include solemnizing a marriage, attending a marriage, hiring church personnel, or renting church property. While most people would agree that those are things that government should not interfere with, I am not aware of a single instance of any of those things occurring in the state of Georgia. If they have, no one has called them to my attention. There were examples that were given in support of this legislation, one being the case of the photographer in New Mexico who refused to take pictures of a same-sex marriage. I would point out that New Mexico had a religious freedom statute, but it was considered inapplicable. But what New Mexico had that Georgia does not have was a New Mexico Human Rights Act that required the result that was achieved in that case. The second case that has been cited widely is that of a bakery in Colorado, where they refused to bake a wedding cake for a same-sex wedding. There, the decision of the court in Colorado was based on the fact that that state had adopted a Public Accommodations Act that required that result. Georgia has no such statute. Now, I have examined the protections that this bill proposes to provide to the faith-based community, and I can find no examples of any of those circumstances having occurred in our state. It is also apparent, as I have indicated, that many of the examples that are being used are occurring in other states that have taken very different statutory language and placed it in their state's laws. House Bill 757, as you know, appeared in many forms during this recent legislative session. Had the bill been the so-called Pastor Protection Act that passed the House of Representatives, I would have signed it. I had no issue with that bill. However, other versions of the bill contain language that caused me some concern, as it caused many others concerned that they may in fact encourage or allow discrimination, that it be sanctioned by the state. Now, I have appreciated and do continue to appreciate the efforts of the members of the General Assembly as they attempted to address my concerns and other ways that have been expressed as concerns by others in our state. And what I do today is in no way disparaging of their motivations or their efforts or of those who support this bill in our state at large. Their efforts to purge this bill, that is the General Assembly, their efforts to purge this bill of any possibility that it would allow or encourage discrimination illustrates how difficult it is to legislate on something that is best left to the broad protections of the First Amendment to our United States Constitution. You know, that may be why our founding fathers didn't attempt to list the circumstances of which religious liberty could be embraced. Instead, they adopted what the late Supreme Court Justice Scalia classified as negative protection. Now, what that meant was they simply said, we're not going to try to tell you what religious freedom does for you and what government is going to do for you. We will say in our Constitution, enshrined in our First Amendment thereto, what government shall not do, and that is establish a religion or interfere with the free exercise thereof. They had previously proclaimed, as we all know in our Declaration of Independence, that it was our Creator who had endowed upon us unalienable rights. That is, God had given us rights that included liberty, which embraced religious liberty. They had seen that it was clear that liberties were given by God and not by man's government. Therefore, they deemed it unnecessary to attempt to enumerate in statute or constitution what those liberties included. In light of our history, I find it somewhat ironic that some in the religious community today feel that it is necessary for government to confer upon them certain rights and protections. If indeed our religious liberty is conferred upon us by God and not by man-made government, perhaps we should simply heed the hands-off admonition of the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. When legislative bodies attempt to do otherwise, the inclusions and omissions in their statutes can lead to discrimination, even though it may be totally unintentional. For those in the religious community, some of whom have resorted to insults that question my convictions and my character, and to those within the business community, some of whom, not all by any stretch, have resorted to threats of withdrawing jobs from our state. They should know I do not respond very well to insults or to threats. The people of Georgia deserve a leader who will make sound judgments based on solid reasons that are not inflamed by emotion. And that is what I intend and have tried to do. As I stated before, I do not think that we have to discriminate against anyone to protect the faith-based community in Georgia, of which I and my family have been a part of for all of our lives. Our actions on House Bill 757 are not just about protecting the faith-based community or providing business-friendly climate for job growth in Georgia. I believe it is about the character of our state and the character of our people. Georgia is a welcoming state. It is full of loving, kind, and generous people. And that is what we should want. They choose to worship God in the way they see fit in a myriad of ways in a variety of different settings. I believe that that is our best side. And our people, every day, work side by side without regard to the color of their skin, of their fellow mate, or the religion that their co-worker might adhere to. They are simply trying to make life better for themselves, their families, and their communities. That is the character of Georgia. I intend to do my part to keep it that way. For that reason, I will veto House Bill 757. Thank you.